Greetings, Poke fans! Michael here. Before I get into this video, I just wanted to say thank you guys. This past week I turned 22, and the amount of love and happy birthday wishes I got it made me really happy. So thank you guys so much for that. You're awesome. Also, as an added bonus, here's a fun picture of me with an outdated but cute cake that my friends got me. Alright, enough sappy stuff. Pokemon Sun and Moon have introduced tons of new Pokemon that I think are really awesome and love a lot, such as Decidueye, Vikavolt, and Lycanroc. And overall, I think this generation of new Pokemon is pretty solid and interesting. However, like every generation of Pokemon, there are some new ones that I think are just incredibly dumb. So because I think it's fun to diss creatures that don't have any real feelings, today I'm going to be counting down the top 10 new Pokemon or Alola forms that I think are the worst. These will just be my personal feelings toward these Pokemon and will have very little to do with battle prowess. In other words, I'll be basing these decisions mainly on appearance and design concept, along with some personal experiences I've had with these Pokemon that have just rubbed me the wrong way. So be sure to leave a like, comment below what Pokemon you think are going to be on the list, and subscribe if you haven't. And without further ado, here are the top 10 worst new Pokemon from Pokemon Sun and Moon. Number 10. Kamala. To give you an idea of my general opinion on this generation, there are going to be some Pokemon on this list that I don't actually dislike all that much. The first of which is Kamala. I know that a lot of you guys probably like Kamala. It's the koala Pokemon we've been wanting for a long time. The gimmick of it always sleeping is really amusing and interesting, and it's cute. All of those statements are things that I agree with, meaning that I don't really dislike Kamala that much, hence why it's in the last place on this list. But I had to put Kamala on here because it's a shining example of wasted potential. I ran a poll on Twitter earlier this week, which you should follow me on if you have the chance, and the vast majority of you guys thought that Kamala was going to get an evolution, and I did too. Kamala just looks like a Pokemon that should grow and become stronger. It's small and cute, just like a lot of other basic form Pokemon. But Kamala never evolves. Instead of making it turn into some buff koala with wooden armor because the log fused to its body or something cool like that, we get a tiny koala that stays small and unconscious for its entire life. This is just a huge disappointment for me and is the main reason why Kamala is on this list. Number 9. Orasorio. Another Pokemon I'm not a fan of, but don't strongly dislike, is Orasorio. I think Orasorio is a fine Pokemon. I think the concept of it having different forms depending on the islands is pretty creative, and I also think it being based on different forms of dance is an interesting design decision. But the reason I don't like Orasorio is because I have had some pretty negative experiences with it. First off, it is a pain to catch. Its catch rate is a mere 45, the same as the basic form pseudo-legendary Pokemon like Jangmo-O. Now while this isn't absurdly low, both Jubilee and I have had an overly difficult time trying to catch this stupid thing. And I didn't even catch one until after I finished the main story, simply because I had so much trouble before and gave up. This is especially annoying since Orasorio isn't even good, so the fact that it's so bad and also so difficult to catch is just super obnoxious. In addition to that, while breeding some Pokemon off camera, I accidentally ran into a trainer that I hadn't battled before who had the Psychic type Orasorio, and all I had was my level 17 Fletchinder. I had to use close to 10 potions and almost lost the battle, so that experience also left a bad taste in my mouth toward Orasorio. Number 8. Delmas. When I first saw a picture of Delmas, my initial thoughts were, oh come on guys, a steering wheel and an anchor, that thing is just hideous, it's just, oh come on. But then I got one in the game and I read its dex entry. Swinging its massive anchor, it can KO Wailord in a single blow. What appears to be green seaweed is actually its body. Well, okay, that's actually pretty badass. But what's this about the seaweed? So I read the Moon Dex entry. The soul of seaweed adrift in the waves became reborn as this Pokemon. It maintains itself with new infusions of seabed detritus and seaweed. Okay, that's actually pretty cool. The fact that Delmas possess seaweed that has made the steering wheel and anchor a part of its body is kinda odd, but pretty cool in my opinion, hence why Delmas is lower on this list. However, that doesn't change the fact that Delmas is pretty frickin' ugly, and I do think they could have made a cooler looking Pokemon with a similar origin or gimmick. So while I can respect Delmas, I'm still not really a fan of it. Number 7. Toracat. Middle evolutions are often the awkward puberty stage in a Pokemon's lifespan. For example, we have the cute little Torchic and the badass Blaziken. but in between the two of them is Combuskin, the awkward fighter chicken whose body looks like a rocket ship. I think Toracat is a shining example of this. Litten is a cute little quadruped cat, and Incineroar is a buff bipedal wrestler cat. However, Toracat is an awkward combination of the two, being a buff quadruped cat. I just think its overall design is pretty awkward and a little bit uncomfortable, and I also think the Fire Bell is pretty dorky. Incineroar is an alright Pokemon in my opinion, but it definitely has to go through a pretty severe awkward stage before reaching that level. Number 6. Drampaw. I know a lot of people love Drampaw, which I can't understand. It seems like a really nice Pokemon, especially the part where it talks about caring for children. But even though Drampaw seems like a nice guy, I can't really get behind its design. Its body looks like it's covered in discarded mop heads, and its big pink eyes with no pupils or irises are just pretty unsettling for me. I do understand that they wanted to make a dragon Pokemon that was more like an elder, wise, more caring dragon rather than the typical fearsome monster. Heck, its name is even a combination of dragon and grandpa, further implying that it's based on friendly elders. And while I do really like the idea of that, in my opinion, Drampaw's design and appearance is just too uncomfortable and unsettling for it to give off that vibe of friendliness or wisdom. Number 5. Buzzswole and Mosa. So Buzzswole and Mosa are paired together on this list both because they are counterparts and because I have the same opinions about both of them. These two different versions of UB02 are the only Ultra Beasts on this list, but that's not because they're the only ones I think are weird looking. I'm not super into any of the Ultra Beasts and think pretty much all of them are kinda weird, but I'm okay with that because they're supposed to. The premise of Ultra Beasts is that they are Pokemon from an alternate world that is strange and unlike ours. Therefore, it makes sense that they would look kind of different and foreign to us. The reason I don't like Buzzswole and Mosa is because they don't seem like Ultra Beasts. They're just humans combined with bugs. Buzzswole is a mosquito or something like that combined with a super ripped dude, and Mosa is a woman combined with a cockroach. They just took two different things from our world, combined them together, and then claim it's from another world. It doesn't make sense. Now I do acknowledge that Nihilego and Xurkitree are based off of things from our world too, with Nihilego seeming similar to a jellyfish and Xurkitree being, well, Xurkitree. However, Buzzswole and Mosa still bother me the most, both because they just look like people and not like foreign creatures, but also because I think they're uglier and more uncomfortable than the rest of the Ultra Beasts. Number 4. Crabominable. I think Crabominable had a lot of potential. I think the idea of a crab adapting to colder climates is really creative, and I really like the ice fighting type since I'm always excited to see new type combinations. The problem with Crabominable, though, is that it just looks ridiculous. Crabrawler is an alright looking Pokemon. It's not one of my favorites, but I do like how its claws ain't just for attracting mates. But then it evolves and everything it had just goes away. It's like the jock in high school who comes back to the reunion having severely let himself go. Crabominable just looks so unwell. And don't even get me started on that horrific haircut. The concept behind Crabominable is really cool, but the execution of it definitely is not. Number 3. Bruxish. Dear God, whose idea was this? Alright team, I have a brilliant idea for a brand new Pokemon. Let's make one based on the famous Hawaiian fish, the Huma Huma Nuka Nuka, whatever it is. Okay, alright, you seem to like that idea. Well, what if we make it more brightly colored and give it psychic powers? Yeah, you like that, okay? Alright, but get this, here's the kicker. What if we give it giant lips with sharp teeth and make it look so uncomfortable that everyone who looks at it feels immediately uneasy? Isn't it brilliant? No, Mr. Pokemon Designer, sir, it is not. I do like the idea of having a Pokemon based on that Hawaiian fish whose name I'm not gonna try and say again, but why make it look like this? Bruxish is just so incredibly ugly and uncomfortable that it makes me thankful that it's not very good in battle. Could you imagine having to see this Pokemon around all the time? Yikes. Number 2. Alolan Persian. I love the concept of Alola forms and have since the beginning. I think it's really creative and interesting, and I think it's a fun way to bring older Pokemon back into relevance again. Meowth and Persian were definitely deserving of some since they're rarely seen in the games, and I think making them Dark type was a good idea. Alolan Meowth looks super sleek and a cool deviation from the original Meowth design. But Alolan Persian? What were they thinking? Who thought it was a good idea to make this Pokemon's head look like it swallowed a watermelon? It looks completely absurd, and the fact that it's supposedly a symbol of beauty in the Alola region is just comically ridiculous. I get that they were going for how round faces can be interpreted as symbols of beauty, but I just think Alolan Persian is just too dumb. Number 1. Alolan Dugtrio. Alolan Persian may be bad, but it is not as terrible as this stupid thing. I hate Alolan Dugtrio and have since the beginning. We have some really creative and awesome Alola forms, such as making Exeggutor more like a real palm tree and turning the Vulpix line to being ice types. But Dugtrio? They just add hair to it. It's gotta be one of the stupidest things I have ever seen Game Freak do. Now I do understand that Alolan Dugtrio's hair is based on Pele's hair, which is volcanic fiberglass named after the Hawaiian goddess of volcanoes that does indeed look like blonde hair. Now while that does make the hair make a bit more sense, I still think it looks ridiculous and absurd. If they wanted to make volcanic Dugtrio and Diglett, they should have gone for something like what True Green 7 came up with, not just toss on wigs that make it look like Hanson. And to cap it all off, not only is Alolan Dugtrio an eyesore, Diglett and Dugtrio are all over the place in Alola. You can find one or the other in 11 different locations, which means you're going to be dealing with them a lot throughout your journey. I certainly had to, and I did not like to be regularly reminded of how much I hate this thing. So there we have it. Those are the top 10 worst new Pokemon from Pokemon Sun and Moon. Now if you do happen to like any of these Pokemon and I offended you, I do apologize for that. I just think it's kind of fun to diss these Pokemon and point out some of the missteps that Game Freak made, when in reality I do think these are the best games of Pokemon ever made, and this generation of Pokemon is pretty awesome. What did you think of this video? Do you agree with my list? What are some other new Pokemon that you think are terrible? Be sure to let me know in the comments down below, and if you like this video, be sure to leave a like, and if you haven't already, you should definitely subscribe for more fun Pokemon content of all kinds. Alright, that's all I have for now, so until next time, Poke fans, gotta catch them all!